Welcome into another edition of Tampa 2. Casey Phillips here with staff writer Bree Dix. And I really think it was us starting with the Guten Tag last week. We were in the German spirit, and it manifested that win. That's what I think.
I think it did too.
So now, today, we have an incredibly fun game to break down.
Yes.
It was a great trip. We were both on it. So much that I feel like we can talk about. And then, of course, we don't have an upcoming game because of the bye week. So we figured we'd also do a little bit of a season recap to this point. That it's not quite the midway point, but the bye week is always just sort of a good time to take stock, look at where you are. I know that's what the coaches do with it. They take time to self-scout and see what they have. So we're going to do a little bit of that here as well, because then we'll be back next week and we can preview the next game upcoming. So let's start with the Germany game itself, and then we can talk a little bit about the overall experience of it. But for this game, big picture takeaways for you, what stands out?
I think offensively, the thing that we were all most excited about is just the success that they had in creating that balanced attack. I mean, I feel like every week we've come in here, we've talked about how they haven't been able to get that effectiveness on the ground, and they were able to do that against the Seahawks team. Rashad White had an incredible game, eclipsed that 100-yard marker, but with the effectiveness of the run game, they were able to open up play action, which that benefited Brady because he had more time in the pocket. He had more time to survey downfield, and that opened up some of those downfield shots that we haven't really seen, the go routes, the post routes, and really complemented Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, and things were just clicking for this offense, and they were able to put a cohesive unit out there that we haven't really seen, and they converted 10 of 15 third down conversions, which they haven't converted over 50% of those since week 5, and also they were 2 of 2 in the red zone. So a lot of that perpetual cycle of issues that we have talked about that have plagued this team in 2022, you saw that finally come to fruition. And I really think we will potentially look back at the season and that game-winning drive against the Rams, I think will be the turning point of this year.
Yep.
Because I think they came in off that game with that confidence, and you saw that, and everything was just clicking for this team. And then defensively, I mean, a Seahawks team that had been predicated on running the football. They knew that was going to happen with Kenneth Walker, the way that he was going, and they were able to hold them in check. They kept them to 57 yards total in the first half. And although they kind of let up a little bit and gave up the touchdowns in the fourth quarter, I think this was still an impressive outing for this team. And after a 5-game drought of no takeaways, you had Devin White that spearheaded the unit and got that strip sack. And that kind of created some of the momentum that team needed to put away that win. So I think all in all, it was just a very encouraging game in all phases to see.
I agree. I think it was the perfect way to handle where every single thing that had been an issue got addressed.
Right. Yes.
That's incredible for it to be the third down on both sides of the ball, like you said, in the red zone, and it was explosive plays. It was long drives. It was not leaving your defense out there forever.
Right.
I mean, it was just every single thing that had gone wrong this season at any point got addressed in this game. And that is such a turning point. It almost makes me sad there's a bye week now, because that momentum.
Yes, you just want to keep
I feel like I want them to get to play again. Now, of course, bye week is amazing in terms of getting healthy, and I know that everyone is very happy about it, especially after a long trip to Germany. But it does feel like that momentum carried over, and I feel like when you're a team that has had success and you do have incredible players and you have a Tom Brady, that we talked about how when he joined the team, there was that feeling of no matter what, we can win. No matter what the situation is, we know we've got Brady, we can do the game-winning drive, we can do this. There's that feeling of we're never out of it, we're always in, that feeling of we expect to win. And the interesting thing about that feeling is it can go 2 different ways. It can go a little bit towards complacency of, oh, well, of course we're going to win.
Right.
Or it can be the motivator of, we've got to win. And I think
you've got to capitalize on the winning streak.
And I think who knows, it's hard to know what was going through everybody's minds, but maybe there was a little bit of one, and now it's switched to the other, of using that we should be winning mentality to fire you up instead of complacency. And I think that game-winning drive of the Rams is what did that. It was that reminder of,
this is what we have.
This is what we can do. This is what we can be. And boy, is it a lot more fun when we're doing it this way. And it felt like the team got back to having fun in Seattle. That game-winning drive gave them permission to enjoy football again. because sometimes that success can be pressure too. It can feel like we're supposed to win, and suddenly things are just pressure packed. And now Seattle, I think back to like Rachaad White's stiff arm. And now the fact that, I saw the video of incredible.
Contradicts his soul. It was tremendous.
It was incredible. And then we had Akeem Hicks mic'd up, and I watched that clip of him and the sideline reacting to the stiff arm. And it is, first of all, if you haven't seen it, it's very funny. You need to go check it out. But it just, the excitement everybody had and the support for their teammates and all of it, that you just felt like, all right, if you're at 10 weeks into the season when things are becoming a grind, you need to be having some fun.
Right.
And Seattle felt like they rediscovered that fun, and to feel like they put together everything they know they could be. And it is going to be great to watch if that could carry over. And I think even just the whole Germany experience, there was a lot to it that probably helped on the field as well. Of that crowd was unbelievable.
Goodness.
The overall experience, watching how excited these people were for football, to see them, the fact that it was loud, start to finish, it gave it a playoff atmosphere.
Oh, I would say almost Super Bowl feel to it.
Yes, I agree. And I think that there's a lot to be said about that, that even though it wasn't a technical home game experience, therefore, that you had, people that were rooting for both teams or neither team, or you had Seahawks fans there, because it was truly a neutral site, as neutral can be. And so it was loud when you were on offense. So it wasn't a typical home game experience. Right. But I think the overall atmosphere did a lot to motivate the team as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, and just at Allianz Arena, they had, during the commercial breaks, the songs, the almost karaoke in this arena, with fans just singing aloud these songs. And my favorite was, during that long Rachaad run, that country road song was still playing in the background as he's running. It was like, this is a movie script. It was just incredible. And I think that fired up this team as well. Just seeing the crowd's reactions to this entire game was, everybody just feeded off that energy.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's huge. All right, so let's get a little bit into looking at the season up to this point and where things stand. Overall, where would you just describe where this team is at right now, knowing they are 5-5? They are one game ahead in the NFC South, and then looking at when the losses came, when the wins have come, how they've done each of those things. Just kind of an overall evaluation of, give me a status report of where the Buccaneers are.
Well, yes, they took sole possession of the NFC South. They're now 5-5. But I think the key for this team moving forward, and like we've touched on, you saw the same things happening over and over on the offense, their inability to sustain drives and convert on third down, and got an unfavorable down and distance. And then on defense, the coaches have stressed the missed assignments, the poor run fits, the missed tackles, and all of these things that contributed to an uncharacteristic effort in stopping the run, which this team has been predicated on forcing teams to be one-dimensional. And they got back to that against the Seahawks. But I think the key moving forward is for this team to be able to continue to do that on offense, to be able to continue to run the ball and create that balanced attack. Because when you're able to run the football and teams have to allocate more resources to the line of scrimmage to stopping the run, then that creates those favorable one-on-one matchups for Mike Evans, for Julio Jones, for those pass catchers, where Brady's able to target and has more time downfield to survey and get that going as well. It all works cohesively. And then defensively, to be able to continue to stop the run and force teams to throw it like they did with Geno Smith. And so I think if they're able to do that, you're going to continue to see this team stack those wins, and then they get back to what is their bread and butter.
Yeah, I think that for me, trying to pinpoint where this team is at is so based on health. And that's always how it is in the NFL, right? That's just such a huge aspect of it, is who gets hurt and when and at what positions and all of that kind of thing. And it's no surprise that the year that the Bucs won the Super Bowl, they were considered basically the healthiest team in the league if you look at games missed by your key starters. I look at these games and I think about how when you now have, especially against Seattle, you have Antoine Winfield Jr. in and healthy. You have Akeem Hicks in and healthy on the defensive side. And then on the offensive side, you have Julio Jones looking like Julio Jones.
Yes.
You have Chris Godwin looking more like the Chris Godwin before his injury. It just, when you have all these pieces that the Bucs originally imagined having, built their offense around, built their defense around, because they talked about how tough it would be to even game plan all year when guys would be day to day or questionable. You're not sure if they're going to go. Like,
Right.
do you draw up plays for them not knowing if they're going to go? Do you not? But then they're ready and you haven't planned for it. And there's just been a lot of uncertainty about some very key guys health-wise. And I think when you look at the games where they were all available, that's when you see that this, like, of course, it makes sense that this is when this team is successful. So I think it's been so up and down and therefore kind of hard to pinpoint. And it feels like there'd be games where, Coach Bowles would talk about the fact that no one played a great game, that it would be everybody had just kind of missed assignments here and there, that every play it would be one person here, one person here. It was always very hard to diagnose the team. I really think so much of it is the health of, therefore it's the communication of the people that are used to playing with each other.
Right.
And we forget how many, there still are so many new pieces to this team. And, I had Clyde Christensen on the radio show earlier this week, the quarterback coach, and he talked about how to get that chemistry with Brady, and you have all these new weapons, it is not the same going through walkthroughs, non-padded practices when guys kind of jogging a route. That is not going to help you in game time to know how a guy releases and what his decision making is going to be and where he wants the ball and where he knows that Brady wants to throw the ball. All those things take true game reps. And I think we're finally at a place where, and this is very similar to what happened in the Super Bowl year, where when all those pieces were new together, it took about to week 10, 11, somewhere in there for
it's
it
gonna take time
to hit. Yeah, and I think that we're finally seeing guys being healthy enough to get enough of those reps to get that chemistry. So I think that's going to be big. How about for you? Interesting storyline so far this year. What stands out to you?
Ooh. For me, I am going to go with Vita Vea leading this team in sacks. I think if you had told me at the outset of the 2022 season that our nose tackle was going to be the player that would have the most sacks on this team, I wouldn't have believed you. And that's not to diminish or degrade his ability, because he is an incredibly talented player, but it's to express how rare that is for that position. I mean, the nose tackle is predominantly viewed as that two-gapper, the guy that sits and holds the line of scrimmage and commands double teams and is the run stuffer. And while, yes, that is true, it's also true that has quickness out of his stance, and he does have the athleticism to be on the field in those passing downs, which creates opportunities for him to get to the quarterback. I mean, he's just been explosive. He has 6.5, and we're only through week 10. So I think it'll be exciting to see where he goes throughout the rest of the season. And like you mentioned, I think having Akeem Hicks back in the middle has really helped create some of those opportunities and those one-on-ones for Vita Vea to overwhelm centers and guards and drop quarterbacks in the backfield.
Yeah, I think for me it would be the interior offensive line.
Yeah.
That's a storyline that's just been so interesting, going all the way back to that first week of training camp when Ryan Jensen goes down, and it was already a storyline even before that, when you lost Ali Marpet, you lost Alex Kappa. What is this group going to look like? And you think, well, at least if there's new guys there, you got Jensen anchoring it, you got vets on the outside, a vet on the inside, and then you can they can all help each other out. And then of course Jensen goes down, and now this whole interior block is new and untested in some ways. I mean, Shaq Mason, of course, was not new to the league, but new to here.
Right.
And to just see how they've handled it, I think that there was a bit of a sky is falling mentality when that happened, that everyone was just like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And to see how Hainsey has stepped up in such a big way. I mean, you don't really hear his name called, which in the offensive line world, great thing. You don't hear his name called a whole lot. Shaq Mason has been playing exactly how everybody thought Shaq Mason would play. And, we know that Luke Gedeke, there was some ups and downs, and then he got hurt. But then to have Nick Leverett step in and take on Aaron Donald, to then be sick last week during the week.
He had the flu.
Yeah, sick last week during the week, and then to have to fly to Germany, after recovering from being sick, and to play the kind of game he did, where we established, and I know that was the first thing Coach Bowles said.
I think he played a big part of that.
A huge part in that. And this week, with my Todd Bowles radio show, the first thing I just asked him, big picture takeaways of the game. The first thing he shouted out was the O-line keeping Brady upright and getting the run game going. That he was so happy with their performance. And to just see that, I think if we could have heard in training camp that in week 10, we'd be hearing the first thing Todd Bowles said is, I'm so proud of our O-line. We'd be like, whew, okay, that's good to know.
Yes.
We'd have been so happy to know that that was where things were heading. And I just think it'll be interesting to see when Luke Gedeke is healthy again, what they decide to do. So that's a storyline for me that is still so interesting to see how it's played out to this point, what it'll look like the rest of the year. And again, with the chemistry, they're only going to continue to get better as they learn each other and grow in that area. So I do feel like that's, for me, one of the biggest storylines there. So how about we close out with this most improved player so far this season?
For most improved, I'm going to go with Antoine Winfield Jr. And I know that he's been, he had missed a couple of games with the concussion protocol, but he was back against the Seahawks. And he has been on the upside in the previous years, got Pro Bowl recognition last year. But I think this season, how they devised that new role for him in the secondary with kind of that three safety look, he's in the slot predominantly. I just think he has thrived. I mean, his physicality near the line of scrimmage, his play route recognition to break up screens, his effectiveness on blitzes, he has just had a sensational year.
Yep.
And I think you can't really undervalue what he's doing every single game that he's been here. And even when the Bucs weren't playing as well, he would have those timely plays that would help kill the opponent's drives.
Yep.
So I would say he's definitely been one of the most improved and one of the most consistent and durable players this year for the defense.
I agree. He was exactly who I was going to say as well, which to say a guy who was already playing at an incredible
level is the most improved. Yeah.
Is wild. Because a lot of times those most improved awards tend to go to people who weren't great.
Yes.
And then have improved.
And then just hit
they
this
had all this
incredible
room
ceiling.
to grow. And it's unbelievable that he still had any room to grow because he was already playing at such a high level. So yeah, this new role has been incredible for him. So he was going to be who I say. So instead, to not just repeat yours, I think I'm going to go with Rachaad White. That I think to watch how he just, he wasn't used a whole lot earlier in the year, but it never has felt like the moment was too big for him. And I think about how even when he fumbled the opening kickoff against the Chiefs, he came right back and had some really big plays after that. Like, he's just seemed like a guy who nothing gets to him. He has the maturity, and he just keeps grinding it out no matter what his role is, however big or small. He's a team guy. He's happy for everybody. He's doing what's asked of him. And to see him go from really not getting too many opportunities on offense early on in the year to now his first 100-plus rushing game and to just do it on such a huge stage.
Yeah.
I think that I'm really excited to see, just he runs with such energy and bounce and smoothness somehow still. And I think it's going to be really exciting to see the way that we can use both him and Fournette together and how I think they make each other better, that they're going to...
they have very complementary styles.
Yeah, I think that it's just going to be the fact that both of them are doing well is now going to help each other and kind of be a snowball effect. So I think Rachaad White is my answer on that one. All right, well, that's going to do it for us on this edition of Tampa 2. Again, we'll be back next week, and we're going to do a little bit more analysis of the season to this point and then look ahead to the next game at Cleveland. So make sure you come back then. We'll see you next week.